Okay, so this is Bansky and the Tradition of Destroying Art. This is an article that you can either find in maybe a language GED test, or you might even find it in a social studies GED test. And this is from Common Lit. So if you look here, the information in this gray box is very important. It says Bansky, excuse me, an anonymous English-based street artist, recently rigged a frame holding his girl with balloon to shred the picture after it sold at auction. In this informational text, Praminda Jacob discusses other artists who have similarly destroyed the work and the meaning behind their actions. As you read, take notes on why the author thinks some artists destroy their work. Okay, so with that said, your first job was you have this in PDF form. I wanted you to read it. Now we're going to go and just kind of chunk it up and look at sections at a time. So on the first couple of paragraphs, 1 and 2, just talking about Bansky and talking about I like this question right here. Did he anticipate that the critics would claim that the work, in its particularly shredded state, would climb in value to at least $2 million? So Bansky is this artist. This picture right there he put it on a piece of paper. It went through a shredder. It went up in value after he tried to destroy it. So basically, they're asking, why do artists do this? So they're asking these questions right here in the second paragraph to say, does he know that it's going to go up in value? Did he do it for that reason? And we have no, in paragraph 3, way of really knowing. All we know was it was supposed to be fully shredded and not partially destroyed. So the shredder didn't work. So this lady is an art historian here in paragraph 4, and she's saying, I view this as in a larger context. There are a bunch of examples of artists destroying their art throughout history. So this is a super important quote right here. It says, in shredding Girl with the Balloon, Bansky seems to be pointing to the central absurdity of his graffiti art being treated as fine art. When it appears on city streets, anyone can vandalize it. Now that the same images are in galleries and auction houses, they must be handled with white gloves. So initially, this girl with the balloon was here on the street, and anybody could spray paint it and mark it up and do graffiti. That was the point. But the absurdity, the craziness of this whole thing is, he took it from the street, put it on print, and now it's in a museum, and you have to treat it delicately, and that's not what he wanted with his art. So she says right here, we've seen the same pattern play out time and time again. Artists will launch a withering, and withering is right here, intended to make somebody feel humiliated, critique, and instead of taking offense, the market loves it. So artists are calling people out, but the people who are enjoying that art like to be called out for whatever reason. So subversive right here is seeking or intended to undermine an established system. So they're trying to break down that system of their art, saying something but maybe missing the point, and art critics and art buyers miss that point, and then because they miss that point, they still want that art, and the art goes up in value. So there's a lot of ways that in the past artists try to as she said, point out the absurdity of their art and go against that mainstream very higher level artistic world there. So some of the most well-known Bansky subversive artistic predecessors came in the early 20th century Dada movement. So they destroyed a lot of art, as you read this, and it gives us many examples of different artists throughout time destroying art, and she goes into detail with Duchamp, another detail with Picabia. She talked about Rauschenberg and all the things, and Tinguely's, all the different ways that they destroyed art. And trying to decide, why did they destroy this art, other than to maybe say the art world is just garbage. They're taking the art, they're not looking at why we made this art or what this art means, and they're inflating the value, and that's not why we did it. So Gorillas in the Mist, and it's not like an actual animal gorilla. For those of you maybe who remember the Sandinista War, like guerrilla fighters or Vietnam maybe, they were the fighters who were kind of behind the scenes, and they used no holds bar tactics. They just went and tried to win at all costs and cause as much destruction as possible. These acts of destruction are motivated by the same impulse. They wanted to critique the art world. So the art market symbolized nothing more than a void, an empty space. With the urban street as his studio, Banksy uses his art to critique institutions such as art museums and authority figures like the police and Queen of England. So he's going against all of those people in power. And because he's going against them, for whatever reason, the art museum and the people in power really like them. So she ends by asking, is he complicit with the art market? Like, is he doing this to kind of make his art have more value and meaning? And we don't really know, because he's anonymous. So goes on to talk about how the girl with the balloon didn't get fully shredded, it's only partially shredded. So now they renamed it Love is in the Bin. So they took advantage of that bad piece of luck, and they renamed it to something else. Okay, so now you have your text-dependent questions here. And the first one says, which statement best expresses the central idea? Okay. So now you have A, artists have realized that their art is more valuable when it's destroyed or performative, which has led to many shocking artistic performances. B, the public is most moved by self-destructive art as it can't be preserved or truly owned by anyone. C, artists have created destructive or shocking art to criticize the art world, but are instead celebrated by the art world. Or D, professional artists aren't capable of truly challenging the art world and market as they directly benefit from it. Okay, so hopefully you did these. You're checking your work. I'm going to go backwards and tell you why it's not them. So it's not D, because they can critique the art world, even though they do benefit from it. So it's not that. It's not D. So it's also not B, sorry. The public is moved by self-destructive art. It doesn't really talk about them being moved because it can't be preserved or owned, because it can be owned. That's total contradiction, because that girl with the red balloon, that got shredded. Somebody bought it and owned it, even though it was partially shredded. So now we're between artists realize their art is more valuable when it's destroyed, so they do it. Do artists do it on purpose, or do they do it, or do they create this to criticize? So we know that artists aren't doing it on purpose to gain monetary value. They're doing it on purpose to criticize. So this one is C. So we need a detail, some text evidence. So one says, I threw the urinal into their faces as a challenge, he lamented, and now they admire it for its aesthetic beauty. B says, made of scrap found in New Jersey junkyards, the massive work was supposed to be a mechanical display. So B is not it. Excuse me, because they're just describing his art piece. So C says, in the process, he destroyed all of his belongings, including his own paintings. So that's talking about, him destroying stuff. But is it talking about him destroying stuff and critiquing things? No. So D says, the public soon learned to cheer them on and to detach themselves from the attack the artists are waging. So that's also not talking about the actual them destroying things and then challenging the art world. But he's talking about throwing that urinal into their faces as a challenge. So that one's A. 3 says, what is the author's overall purpose of the text? Why did they write it? A, to explore the motivations for Bansky and other artists to destroy their artwork. Yeah, they talked about Bansky and other artists, why they did it. B, to show how artists have been able to increase the market value of the art. Well, they did do that, but is that like the central idea behind it? So let's leave B just for now. C, to reveal to readers how Bansky was able to destroy his own art after it was sold. Well, that was one detail, supporting detail, but it's not the overall purpose. So D says, to show how the art world's interest is always changing and difficult to predict. So once again, not D, because it's one part, tiny part of the article, the text, but it's not the whole thing. So between A and B, to explore the motivations for Bansky and other artists to destroy their art. And B says, to show how artists have been able to increase the market value of their art. So if we go all the way to the top here, it says, an artist will launch a withering critique, and instead of taking offense, the market simply tightens its embrace. It's talking about the artist critiquing. And then, hold on, sorry, I skipped ahead. Hold on. Talking about critiquing and the Dada, the versions of subversion, and the subversion was destruct. Ooh, and I can't spell. Destruction of their art. That's how they were trying to take down the system, by destroying the art. So this one is A, because it's talking about why did they destroy their art? What was the reason? So 4 says, how does destructive or shocking art, according to the text, develop? How has it developed over time? So A says, as more artists become popular throughout the world, new artists had to use more shocking or destructive art to get the public's attention. B says, as the market value of art started to go down, artists no longer cared about how others perceived their work or if it could be preserved. That's definitely not B. C, as technology developed over time, art was created and destroyed in new ways that shocked and intrigued the public. Or D, as art became defined by its monetary value, artists used shocking or destructive acts to change people's assumptions and expectations about their arts. And this one I'm going to tell you is D, because it's tied to what she's looking at there. And there is your common lit.